Welcome, curious minds. Ever wonder if the history you learned kind of missed the main event?
It happens more often than you'd think.
Right. So today, we're going to challenge some of those big ideas about global history. We were actually inspired by the MCLL study group happening this fall. They're doing this amazing deep dive into the Silk Roads.
A fantastic topic. So much there.
Absolutely. And we've been doing our own digging, going through some really compelling books by Peter Frankopan, Christopher Beckwith, and James Millward.
Great sources, different angles, too.
Exactly. Our mission is to pull out the most eye-opening insights and show you how these routes were just so much more than trade paths.
Way more.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the basics. When we say Silk Roads, people usually think, okay, China to the west, maybe 2nd century BCE to the 15th century, Ottoman Empire rise, something like that.
That's the standard picture, yeah.
But here's the first thing. It really wasn't just silk, was it? We're talking spices, gems, but also, well, massive flows of ideas, religions, technologies.
And don't forget the sea routes. The Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, equally vital parts of this whole network. It wasn't just desert caravans.
Good point. So it's this huge interconnected system.
Precisely. And you see the impact in cities like, say, Samarkand. These places weren't just dots on a map. They absolutely flourished because of all this movement. They became these incredible hubs of culture, commerce, basically ancient globalization hotspots.
Okay, so that tees up Peter Frankopan's book, The Silk Roads, perfectly. He takes that idea and just runs with it, doesn't he? He basically argues we've had history backwards, focusing too much on Europe.
He really does. He reorients the whole map, placing Persia and Central Asia right at the heart of, well, everything for centuries. He calls them the true arteries of civilization.
True arteries of civilization. Wow. So how does that change how we see the big empires like the Romans, the Han Chinese, even the Mongols?
Well, Frankopan shows their fates were deeply tied to controlling or at least influencing these routes. It wasn't just about armies. It was about controlling this flow of goods, ideas, wealth.
And you mentioned ideas.
Yeah.
Religions, too.
Oh, massively. Frankopan tracks how Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, they all spread and interacted along these roads. It wasn't neat little boxes. It was a dynamic exchange.
And he even suggests Persia was like a cradle for religious ideas before Europe really got involved.
Yeah, that's one of his more provocative points. He argues Persia was this incredibly fertile ground for religious thought that had influence long before and far beyond what we usually acknowledge in the West. It challenges that narrative.
Okay, so Frankopan shifts the focus east. Then you have Christopher Beckwith and Empires of the Silk Road. He goes even further, right, making this claim about Central Eurasia.
He does. It's a bold claim. He essentially says Central Eurasia, the lands often dismissed as, barbarian steppe, was the real engine of global civilization.
The true engine. That really flips the script. How does he back that up?
Yeah.
We usually think of nomads as just conquerors.
Beckwith argues that's a huge misunderstanding. He paints a picture of sophisticated nomadic cultures, deeply involved in what he calls a vast economic system. Yes, there was conflict, but it was built fundamentally on trade, diplomacy, and interestingly, innovation, not just raiding.
So complex societies, not just hordes on horseback.
Exactly. He really pushes back against those old stereotypes.
Okay, and then James Millward's The Silk Road adds another layer. He emphasizes it wasn't like one single road.
Right, that's crucial. Millward stresses the network aspect. It was complex, shifting, not a highway from A to B. And he brings in fascinating details about biological exchange.
Biological, like diseases.
That too sometimes, but also think horses, grapes changing agriculture, dumplings traveling across continents, even human DNA migration. It's history written in biology and culture.
Wow. And technology.
Huge emphasis there. Silk farming, sericulture, obviously. But also paper making, medical knowledge, military tech. Millward makes this really interesting point that paper might actually have had a greater long-term impact than silk itself.
Paper over silk. That's a thought.
Changes how information spreads, how states are run.
Yep.
It's fundamental. And Millward connects it forward, too. He argues these Silk Road dynamics didn't just vanish with the Mongols or when sea trade grew.
How so?
He shows how they influenced later Russian and Chinese expansionism, how those overland connections remain vital. He even sees echoes in modern initiatives, like Hillary Clinton's talk of a new Silk Road. The patterns persist.
Okay, so when we bring these three together, Frankopan gives us the big, reoriented geopolitical picture. Beckwith zooms in on the underestimated sophistication of Central Eurasia. And Millward gives this Really balanced, interdisciplinary view: history, biology, tech, culture.
You really get a much richer, more complex, and honestly more accurate understanding of how the world developed.
So what does this all mean?
Well, I think taken together, these authors force us, really, to rethink where the center of world history actually was for a very long time. They make a powerful case for Central Eurasia not being some kind of backwater, but actually the crucible of human progress and connection for millennia.
It really shifts your perspective. So thinking about how interconnected everything was back then, ideas, goods, technology, even disease, what surprising links could you, listening now, draw to today? Especially when you see things like China's Belt and Road Initiative. What parts of the history you thought you knew might need a second look after hearing this?